We're going live now.
Thank you. We've got Jim King here with us again. We are in good hands. Let's just give it about a minute more.
It's like the Allstate guy.
Yes. Which one?
I wish I had his voice. I just love his voice. You know, that deep, resonating voice. I like that.
The old guy or the young guy, Jim?
Yeah, which one, Jim?
Oh, I guess I was thinking the only guy I know, I guess he's older. That's a question I tend to not answer anymore. Old guy or young guy?
Dangerous territory. Dangerous.
Actually, maybe everybody is young anymore, so maybe I should say it's young guys.
I like that.
We have 6 out of 12. We have half, folks.
Did you get any? Did you get anybody that say they wouldn't make it?
Yes. I don't think that Eric's able to make it. He's going to try, but he had something last minute come up. He's the only one that I know of for sure.
Okay.
That will probably not be here. But if you'd like, we can just go ahead and jump in, and then as folks join, we can fold them in.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. Well, welcome so much, everyone. Appreciate you all making the time. As successful and productive as our last strategy sessions have been, we very much look forward to just moving forward. So I wanted to thank everyone for that. But we can go over the overview of the agenda and just jump right in, since we only have 2 hours today. If that sounds good for everyone. Or would you like to go around and do an icebreaker? It's really up to you. Jackie, icebreaker? No.
Forge on.
This means
Forge
no.
on, Sarah.
Okay, it's time to time out. Okay, cool. So we'll skip the cheesy icebreakers for today, but there might be some of that at the next, because I love cheesy icebreakers. So if you don't have the agenda in front of you, let me share my screen. I also attached it to the calendar invite as well. 1 second, please. Okay. All right. Sorry. Can you see my screen?
I did have that.
Yeah, we can see it.
Yes, but it's tiny.
It's tiny?
At least mine is. Now all we see are like a mountainous river thing.
You see a mountainous river thing? Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah, something's funky with my computer here. I'm really sorry, guys.
It's back, Sarah.
Can you hit the
It's
green?
back?
Yep, we can see the agenda now.
Okay, you can see the agenda clearly?
Yes,
little
it's
small.
just kind of small. Maybe if you could expand it a
Yeah.
bit.
Or hit your green upper right, left hand green. See if that does anything.
Ooh. Okay, can you guys see this better?
Now we see your desktop.
Oh my goodness, this should not be happening right now.
I can post the agenda in the chat, Sarah.
Thank you, Brandy, while I get this. Okay, let me start from the beginning. I'm so sorry for these technical difficulties, folks. I'm just going to start from the very beginning. But just to vocally talk about the agenda while I'm trying to pull it up is, first thing is we will have the awesome Ryan Balch talk about the mission statement ad hoc meetings, and all the keywords and phrases. We'll go over all of that and see if we can come up with more of a mission statement today. And then we're also going to be setting the perimeters for change. That's the third item on our agenda. Looking at some of those guiding principles, if you'd like, and then look at how you want to tackle the charter review. How much of that do you want to tackle today? And then how, would we like to do another ad hoc group, that sort of thing. So really seeing how you want to proceed with that. And then if we have time, we're going to get some feedback on new member recruitment and how you would also like to tackle that, as well as the idea of an interim co-chair. And then we'll talk about next steps. So that is, and sorry, I wasn't able to share my screen, but I will have it worked out for the other things that we'll show you today. But any questions about the agenda before we jump in?
Hey, Sarah, David just posted that he can share the agenda on the
Thank
screen.
you, David. Appreciate it. Any questions at all about the agenda? Does that sound good to everyone? Okay, Jim, I will toss it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Yeah, so just to underscore, you guys have been great to sort of work through what I would say is a fairly, I don't know, traditional way organizations and boards think about themselves, and starting with a mission, meaning reminder, that's our purpose, right? Why do we exist? What do we do? It kind of answers the what question. And since we've last all got together, there was a subgroup that met and tried to work on taking what we all did in that great colorful mural, if you recall, and tried to succinct that or bring that to something that's a little more manageable. And what we would like to share with you today is sort of pulling that off of the draft board, the drafting table, share it with you again, kind of getting constant feedback, right? And usually when you go through trying to build mission statements or missions of organization, you sort of have this back and forth process that constantly is going on as you refine it and get it better and purify it as you go. So we'd like to do that today. Ryan can review that, and we'll love your feedback as we get closer and closer, I think, with something that this group, I think, would be really excited about. Then we have talked about wanting to kind of go back into the charter, and the charter has some principles. And the way I looked at your charter and was thinking, and what a lot of organizations do, is they have sort of their mission is the what, and principles or values become kind of the how. So what we'd like to potentially do today is begin talking about the how part. How do we go about our mission? How do we go about conducting ourselves and the values that we hold near and dear to how we carry out that mission? And there's really two ways we could do that, just like we did with the mission statement. We could start with a white sheet of paper, or we could start kind of reviewing with the principles that you already have in your charter. And when we get to that, we'll talk through how the best way maybe to approach that. And just like we've done with the mission, we can also ask a subgroup to work in more detail around principles for the overall board, so that we can also take that step. And then the final piece really is, how do we want to approach the charter? Do we want to have a full review of the rest of the charter? So I think there's warrants some board discussion on that piece. And then, as Sarah said, we would like to finish, because this has come up several times, and just have an honest conversation. It's not necessarily directly related to strategic planning, but the whole idea of membership and recruitment into the board, I think, is a topic that I think this group might want to have. So that it gets you a little bit of maybe a little more clarity of kind of where we're headed, and kind of the process that we're trying to go through. So if we could go to the mission statement or the mission document, Sarah, that we had sent out to this board earlier this week. This is the work, this group did great work of trying to come up with really key words. And maybe if I could turn that over to Ryan, since she was, she wonderfully volunteered to be the spokesperson on behalf of our, is that right, Ryan?
That's how it happened.
If you could just kind of give an update from your perspective, and then share with what we've gotten through so far, and then let maybe the committee that's been working on this, they could comment if they want to add to it as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Jim. So hi, everyone. Happy Friday on a long weekend. Yay. I hope all of you get a long weekend. So we all met, and it was, I want to say, and correct me if I'm not remembering folks, but it was Eric and Tamara and Samantha, and I want to say maybe, was Marshall there?
She was.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Okay, and am I forgetting anybody?
There were 5 of us. I think you said it. Yeah.
Was Jackie there?
Jackie will hopefully be at the next one.
Okay. Same
with me. I was supposed to be there,
yeah,
but
so
my server went down.
we had a meeting on February 8th, and we started with our beautiful mural board and looking at the 7 different areas. Was it 7? I want to say.
We started with 7 and then we condensed it down
Yeah.
to 5.
We looked at all 7 areas and sort of rehashed a little bit what we felt the board meant by each area, and then really just started throwing out verbiage around that to try to come up with words that would really express the intent of those 7 areas. So this keywords and phrases document that you see above you, or on your screen, I'm sorry, are sort of the words that we came up with that we would like to include. Obviously not all the words, but these are the words and phrases that meant something to us that we would like to have reflected in the final mission statement when it's crafted. We didn't get to wordsmithing that day. We got to this place where we had all of these phrases identified. And so we thought, since we had this strategic planning session available, it would be great to bring these words and phrases back to you to see if you felt like if they rang true to you, and or you felt like anything was missing before we have our next meeting, in which we're actually going to string them all together into something meaningful. So if you could just take a look at these areas, then maybe someone could scroll up or down a little bit. So maybe we could just take them one by one. So in the first one of innovation, the words that came to mind were creative solutions, support, explore. We were also trying to think of verbs to describe our actions. Encourage, taking risks, and unfortunately I can't see, let me get my copy, I can't see below that.
Can it scroll up at all?
I have my copy here.
Okay.
So below that was moving beyond what we are doing, transcending, pioneer, accountability, action, and measure progress. So maybe we just take it one by one and ask everybody, are those the kinds of words that you felt represents the kind of innovation we're talking about and you would like to see sort of reflected in the mission statement? Or is there anything missing?
Is it possible to show more of the full document?
Sorry, and I think I'm seeing not quite what you are all seeing. Can you see the full document now?
I can't, but would it be helpful if do you want me to try to share I can find it in my emails and bring it up?
I have it up if you want to allow me to share, whoever's manning the controls here.
Sorry, guys, are you not seeing my?
Ryan, you should be able to share.
It looks like we're seeing about
I could
half
share?
of your screen, Sarah.
Okay, let me try and share it.
Okay.
Oh, you know what? I brought it up on a different, forgot I have 2 computers on.
Sorry, guys. Sorry for my technical difficulties. I'll send all of these things to you, David. That would probably help.
That might be faster. I'm sorry. I'm looking at a totally different computer over here.
I'm so sorry.
Takes a village, Sarah.
Thank you for everybody being so understanding.
I think Zoom changed their share options because I'm having difficulty too.
Yeah, it's not giving me
If you
trouble.
want, I can just read them one more time. So in innovation, we had creative solutions, support, explore, encourage, taking risks, move beyond what we are doing, transcend, pioneer, accountability, action, and measure progress.
This is Joan. I'm going to tell you what I don't like. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah. Hi, Joan.
Hi. I can tell you what I don't like. There's some ones that I do like, but I don't like the support. It just seems a little weak sauce.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, innovation and support, maybe.
Okay, David, I just sent you those there.
Other comments, or do you want me to move on to our next area?
So, sorry, Ryan. I'm trying to see how some of this fits with what Jim was just talking about in terms of the what and the purpose. A lot of this seems like the how to me. Encourage and innovation is a how kind of category in my mind. Like,
there's the full document. That might make it easier for people to sort of
yeah,
their mind around all of the different pieces.
Let me know if you need me to zoom in on any part of that.
Maybe just make it just a titch bigger for those of us that should have gone to the eye doctor about 3 months ago. Thank you.
You know, some of them, we did find that some of the areas overlapped when we started talking about them in words that we would, you know, try to convey as our mission. So it might be helpful if we keep going down the line, because innovation can be a verb in and of itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we look at leadership. A lot of discussion again around this being the place where innovation and leadership live, that the regional home for solutions, that this is known as the place where we have expertise around homelessness, the idea of welcome home, regional homelessness solution, inclusivity. We talked a lot about wanting to make sure everybody felt welcomed. Shared power with people with lived experience would be one of our philosophies of leadership. Wanting to provide accurate information, to be a home for solutions, to be person-centered, and a place where people could land. And that's how we talked about our leadership role.
So a lot of these words for me are somewhat redundant. And I'm wondering if
Remember, this was just sort of a brainstorming session. So these were all the words we came up with.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yes.
We're not drilling down to that. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. My mind's going.
But just to add to Ryan, I think it's great if this group has like, what really stands out, or do you think, wow, I like that, or that's representative. And then the flip side too, I appreciate the support is kind of maybe not a very strong word. We don't like that. So kind of both perspectives as we narrow this down.
Yeah, and I don't know what kind of time you guys have allotted to this today. So if this is a place where we want to narrow down a little bit.
We've also got an ad hoc doodle out for everybody. So please fill out that doodle as soon as you can. And then we can do our ad hoc either next week or the week after, where we can hammer it out more. But yeah, we do have 2 hours today till 4. So Jim, not sure how much you want to really drill in on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth taking some time to get feedback on saying, like it, don't like it, on the right track. You know, this is there's a little bit of a kind of a messy process sometimes to sort of go through words like this. Words become powerful. They have to gel. So I wouldn't mind getting more feedback from the group on each one of these.
And maybe I can just have you guys, now that it's on the screen, just look at them yourself and offer feedback on any of it.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I love the headers. And I think, if we could pick out under each header, like 1 or 2 really compelling words, like for me under funding, strategic partnerships stands out. And I thought in our strategic planning session, we heard a lot of talk about bringing other possible funders to the table to help focus, to drive some of the continuums initiatives.
And
Good
this
feedback.
so what would be really nice too is if potentially we could put this in that interactive board and put little just check marks next to it, the words that we like. But I really like transcend under innovation. I think it definitely stands out, and it's a word that describes where we're really trying to go beyond what we see the system currently doing. But it'd be nice if we can kind of just take a moment to put some check marks on it, if it'd be possible, or.
That's a good suggestion. I like that. I don't know, can we do check marks?
Check mark or color the box, fill in the box with color.
You do highlights or something, if you guys tell me which ones.
So for me, transcend under innovation definitely stands out, like I said. And then I'll take a moment on the rest and let someone else go.
I heard strategic partnerships from Jackie earlier, David.
On leadership, I like the regional home for solutions, but I'd like it if we could even say it more succinctly. That some word that would imply that the continuum is the expert on homelessness. It's the go-to place for anything you want to know about homelessness in the region. And I'm not quite, haven't come up with quite the right words for that, but regional home for solutions comes about as close to that as I can think.
That's what makes us unique, I think. I want to say we're the single source. It's go-to, I think, captures it, Jackie. But, if you got a question about homelessness in Maricopa County, you go to CoC. That's where you start. It's got it all there. They can get you anywhere. They have it, or they can get it for you, right? So it's.
I kind of like that idea of go-to, in quotes, the go-to.
I see in the chat also, great idea, trusted source from Tina.
Oh yeah, that was great, Tina.
Yeah.
Trusted source. It's compelling.
Reliable. True.
Yes. Can we type in trusted source? I think it's David. David's doing this, right, David? Is it David? I'm sorry.
I'm taking some notes too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, David.
Trusted source for.
Maybe without getting us off, expand on that. Trusted source for what? To understand what the need or problem is, to understand what works to address it, what's currently available and what's needed. That's what all that means, right? The trusted source to understand the extent of the problem, proven effective approaches that work, current efforts, and resources needed. That's kind of what, it's our job to know all that and to administer this grant in a way that supports progress on all that. Right?
And Bruce, I would elaborate on that and say to understand and be able to articulate the nuances that are unique to our region versus other regions and maybe other continuums. And then I like on the data driven, I'd like us to combine those words with we are data driven decision makers.
Decision makers. Okay, I can add that. I see that I can type too.
Oh, good.
I don't know how I can type into this, but a bad tech day turned into a good one for me.
And Sarah, there is one around decision making. So maybe it's adding data driven to decision making. It's toward the bottom of that row or the bottom of that column.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Brandy.
Going back to the leadership for a minute about something Bruce said, he sort of outlined like 4 or 5, it's understanding what's available, current efforts. There's something powerful also about being the historical knowledge, like understanding where we've been and where we're going.
Agreed.
Because we get asked, we kind of need to know what we've done, what we've tried, and where we're going, and having one entity be responsible for sharing that information accurately,
Yeah, I agree, Ryan.
Would that be under innovation? That's sort of like a measure progress, historical context. That's so smart.
I was just thinking of it under the idea of trusted source. It's like the trusted source for where we've been and where we're going. So there's so many different versions of history that people can tell.
And there's so much to learn from the past to either bring the best out of the past to take to the future or discard the worst of the past in your future decision making.
It's sort of like understanding the why. Why are we here? Well, because we've been there and now we're here.
Okay, other likes, words that stick out, dislikes?
I see that Joan posted some in the comments. I can read those, Sarah. Pioneer, person-centered.
Brandy, if
Okay,
you're
go
okay,
ahead,
I
Joan.
can give you
Yeah,
the reason why.
absolutely.
For the innovation, I like Pioneer because it can talk about the history, and Pioneers almost also I think that you then forge ahead. So it's the past and the future. So that's why I like Pioneer. Obviously our work, it needs to be person-centered. So I just chose one from each category. So person-centered was that one for the next category over. And then because we are that kind of go-to expert, I like the idea of effective work takes both the personal stories, but also the data. So the voice for the data, I really liked. And then I've long thought that the CoC should really be looking at leveraging all of the funding streams. So I liked that. And then these are bold words, but we also need to figure out what's a biteable approach. So localized issues, really let's focus. This is big, heavy stuff. So let's localize it to just our area.
That's good.
My work with the neighbors around the campus has made me have a different reaction to the word pioneer these days.
Fair.
I'm not sure, Bruce, I'm not sure I get that.
Oh, sorry, that was a cynical comment. The Madison Pioneers Coalition is the group that has opposed expanding the campus actively. And so we hear from them all the time.
So that's not a fond word for you right now.
No.
Okay. Can I ask just because we talked about this a little bit on the funding piece. Is it the CoC's responsibility or mission to raise money?
No.
So we had that discussion in the ad hoc group that we are not a fundraiser, but that we should be able and willing to bring to bear additional resources in our community by engaging business, by engaging collaborations and partnerships. We should be bringing awareness and therefore resources to the issue that we're working on, but we shouldn't be fundraising ourselves in a fundraising capacity, like actually bringing in dollars, but we should be bringing in partners with dollars to do all of the things that we all think need to be done. Not money that they would give us and that we would then implement, but bringing the resources to bear in the community around us to also be addressing homelessness. That this one continuum of care fund source cannot be everything there is. It's not the end all be all. It's got to be just one component of a much greater effort to end homelessness in our region. So I think, remember, we talked about bringing to bear, but not being a fundraiser.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments on that particular piece? I think that's, Ryan, that's helpful.
I just, I agree with Ryan. It's like, we bring in board members from all different areas. And so it's like, what sector are we just so heavily involved in that we're aware of new information that may then apply to the board and the community? And so how are we bringing all that information forward and making those connections? The other thing I wanted to comment on was I really like in leadership, and I'm going to see if I can even articulate this, but this shared power with people with lived experience. I think like, and inclusivity is above it, but like that inclusive culture at the highest level, I think is so important when, when you have lived experience and your voice is heard and in a way that is supported and also promotes potential change. When we do that in the CoC board, how does that then also funnel down and get applied to our subcommittees, our providers at all different levels, right? So instead of this like us and them, it really is this community of all of us working in partnership with individuals experiencing homelessness on trying to solve this issue, right?
Agreed.
Like that. Okay, any other feedback, comments, likes, dislikes?
Does the word galvanize resonate with anybody? It just came to my mind, as I'm thinking, it's like, it's not just fundraising, it's involving my vision is that the continuum should be a place where all sectors that intersect with homelessness should come together so that we're all on the same page about what the issue of homelessness really is and working together to holistically, that's a whole bunch of words, but strive to solve the solution.
I love
Just
that.
throw that.
Any other comments, thoughts?
I like galvanize, Jackie. I'm thinking about it's a big word, but it's kind of like as this thing develops, maybe we say we do this stuff to achieve these things and galvanize the community and ensure the effectiveness and whatever else. But you know what I mean? It could be a
Yeah. It just came to my brain and there's something powerful about it.
and unique. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Tamara, in the chat, inclusivity is a mention of striving for more equitable outcomes. Very smart. Put that here. I'll make this chart more pretty later. I promise.
Well, okay, so if we're, if it's dying down for feedback and thoughts on this, how would we like to proceed? I mean, we kind of pulled this off and said, here's kind of what we worked on this subgroup, got great feedback from you. The group's going to meet again, the subgroup, and at least my thinking or suggestion might be that this group tries to begin to write this in a powerful way, a statement or some sort of phraseology that represents these key words. These key words are included that represents what the mission, what the purpose of this group is. So I think that's the path that we were on, if this board is still okay with that, and if that subgroup would still like to take that on. Anybody have a thought on that or support?
I mean, I think that the group did such a fantastic job, like so well thought out. So I appreciate your additional work that you all did on this. It looks like, you covered all topics that nothing really new except for Galvanize was presented. So just fantastic job. So I'm in support of whatever everyone thinks is best. And it looks like the group that's currently working is set on the right course.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
And anybody else? So let's have that group work on this a little bit more. Take what you've gotten. You've highlighted some words. Let them go back and work a little more on coming back with a draft of something that represents a mission. And we'll come back to this group at the next meeting with some feedback. How's that? And Sarah, you said that we still are trying to get that follow-up meeting on the calendar. Is that right with that subgroup?
Yep.
Okay.
We've got a couple people that have filled out the doodle. So if you're interested in being part of that mission statement ad hoc next week or the week after, please fill out the doodle with your availability. We'll get it going.
Okay. All right. Let's not take that off a little bit, but if we could, I'm interested in spending a little bit of time talking about principles or values. And I think you're making, I think some of you have made some observations, is some of this looks like what, some of it looks like how, maybe it's confusing on what is a what is a how, what is a value, but maybe we could spend a little bit of time either reviewing the current principles, if you want to do that, or if you want to start with a white sheet of paper, what would go along with this mission or this group that would represent this? How are we going to go about this work that we do? And as we talked before, we could start this fresh, or we could go and review what has been used before or what's listed before in the charter.
So I personally don't feel compelled to throw everything out and start all over again. Likewise with the mission statement. So I defer to staff on this. This was a question I meant to ask about 3 or 4 meetings ago, and I didn't. There was some language in the original mission statement that actually came right out of the Hearth Act, I believe. And I guess my question, as we're looking to get a little more creative and bold in what we're saying, are we judged on whether or not that specific language is included? That would be something I'd just like you to look at and consider.
Jackie, this is Brandy, just wanting to respond to that. I don't think there's any sort of judgment from HUD in terms of, like if you're asking in terms of the score of our annual application to HUD and as far as what language is included in the mission.
Thanks, Brandy. So I would vote, Jim, for
Yeah.
let's look and see what we have currently in place. And I know I've looked at it, but it's been a while. And
Okay.
just
I think that's great. Yeah. Let's do that then.
Great.
Can you call that up, Sarah, then?
Yep, David, if you wouldn't mind grabbing that charter, it is in the PDF that I sent you, please.
And just call up the principles section,
Thank you.
which I think is on page 6 or 7.
Yes.
As I recall. There you go, right there.
Thank you so much, David.
I looked at these before, and the whole first part is kind of unnecessary, I think, and it's got a lot of words that more are organizational. It's not really principles.
Yeah. I tend to agree with you on that. That's structural.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, there's some things in here, but I think, much as I hate to do, I think they need a real new start, frankly. You know, I mean, we say the words that open and transparent. Every time Amy's talking about the process for the regional planning, it's open, transparent, inclusive. It's right. Those words aren't on here. And so.
I'd appreciate it about 2 clicks to make it bigger. David, you went in the wrong direction from, go back 1 if you want. That was great. Thank you.
I also see in the chat, Tamara wrote, guiding principles need specific language around racial equity, shared power, focusing on people with lived experience, and equitable outcomes. Absolutely.
Yep.
I think to Bruce's point, we sort of think about things differently these days. This is very task oriented, and we're really thinking about, like, we're really not striving to create a system, right? We're striving to create a need to not have a system. I mean, of course, we want effective systems where needed, but we really want to be ahead of that curve. So I think our language is just a little bit outdated, probably.
Well, maybe I might add an observation, and I could be totally wrong as the outsider, but it seems that these principles were written with the mindset of, and I've heard this term, little CoC. In other words, it's really just carrying out the HUD requirements or the HUD money. It's not thinking big CoC of total thinking about solutions for our region, if that makes any sense. So the question is, if we're going to be bigger, when we're thinking now the CoC is a policy group, is this one stop, go-to place, which I like. What are the principles then that now in this current time need to drive us to how we are going about that? And by the way, if you keep going down, I'm sorry to go to
Very
the bottom.
different than this.
But if you go to the bottom, there are some what I would say are more, I think, how pieces, more values.
These are very operational.
Yeah, they are operational. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I've heard some words like, so I think Bruce said open, transparent. I mean, these are what I think you're saying today need to be part of our principles or part of our values. Open, transparent, not listed needs to be a part of it. Are there others?
Inclusive.
Yep.
That idea of pushing forward with urgency. I'm trying to think of the right word for it.
Critical.
The tip of my tongue. It'll come to me.
Data-driven would be here, I would think, not in mission.
I agree. That is a principle.
Yeah, it's a principle. Mhm.
Yep, I like that.
I think maybe I'm thinking of like purposeful or intentional, or, you know, driving, like driving forward, driving, you know, we're moving, we're not sitting.
Identify opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
I liked your comment of urgency, by the way.
Yeah.
I thought that was a good pace that we want to operate in.
Well, I mean, it's a life or death situation, right? And if that doesn't define a need for urgency, there's nothing else that does.
Well said, Jackie.
Like we're propelling action, or, you know.
Driving with urgency, or
It's definitely Friday afternoon. That's all I can say.
driving to end homelessness with a, I don't know, sense of urgency or something like, I don't. I'm trying to get up my thesaurus so I can come up with some good adjectives.
Just another one resonated when you said actionable, because I think you're saying is we're doing everything, we're not just talking about problems or talking about it. We actually we're compelled to action.
We have a bias towards action.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's your duty. I'm in my thesaurus too.
Like we're pursuant, you know, we're doing it, we're pursuing it. Yeah.
It's a necessity for us.
We can use HUD words.
Urgency.
We can use HUD words and say duty to serve, but
anyway, those need to be, I think we are talking about sort of values.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe instead of, I can't remember what this is called because I can't see it anymore, but I think this was like principles and guidelines or something.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we need to talk about our values instead.
Maybe we need a mission, vision, values.
Yeah, I've sort of used principles and value, that term interchangeably, but it may be just me and how I've, tried to box these two together.
Yeah.
I heard too, vision, mission, and values. Vision and mission are different. I don't know that we have a vision. I've seen the mission statement. Would the board want to have both a vision statement as well as a mission statement potentially?
I like that.
Yeah, I'm biased toward that.
Like vision, mission, and values.
Mission, vision, values.
Yeah, isn't the vision kind of already out there in many shapes and forms, right? Like end homelessness, or to use, make it rare and, right? What's our phrase there?
Rare, brief, non-recurring.
Yep. I mean, those are vision statements, right? Whether or not, yeah.
So vision would typically be, when I've been a part of vision statements or visioning, it's kind of the future state that if you carry out the mission where you want to get to. And I sort of agree. I think anything short of saying our vision is to end homelessness, I feel like it's sort of implied, I guess. But you guys push back on that. That's
I think that's right. I think that since we're so focused on racial equity and that's our big priority right now, just making sure that that's in there. So if our vision is, measurably ending homelessness, that, either leaves no one behind or achieves racially equitable outcomes or just equitable outcomes or something along those lines.
I think that's more like in the goals and objectives piece. I mean, the vision would be that we, have the resources, will, and ability to end homelessness immediately, right? And have it not ever happen again.
Yes.
but the operation, I think what we're talking about is more a little bit, I mean, I think we could create a vision, we could have a mission, and we could have values. I think these principles are more on the operational side. So maybe we have the other three things, and then if we want to get more operational, we can. But this is almost, if you look at this, it's talking about how, okay, so you have your vision, mission, and values. Now, how do you operate? That's what I almost, principles. We're talking about HMIS and.
Mhm. I agree. Ryan, I think that is how it reads, almost like the roles and responsibilities of each of the groups.
So since we were talking about these terms that I would call somewhat values oriented, or maybe these aren't values, open, transparent, inclusive, urgency. I just wrote some of these down: data driven, actionable, bias towards action. Are those values in your mind of how or behaviors of this group? And would there be others?
Well, don't our guiding principles to kind of define how we're going to behave? I mean, so you could use guiding principles and values maybe could be interchangeable in my mind. But how are we going to do the work? We're going to do it utilizing data. We're going to do it with a focus on inclusivity throughout all coalition. I just jumped organizations throughout all continuum bodies.
The values to me are, it's like what we believe in. It's like where we're coming from. So they, like this, the sense, the definition of them, what they mean is seen throughout the work that we're doing. And so I think it's, it's critical to kind of use those things that, or at least use the terms that we know we want to have represented in the actual work plan. And I don't necessarily care like what they're named, if it's principles or values, but I think it's the foundation. That's always how I see it is, this is what you believe in. This is what you believe should exist in this work. It's like your moral compass in a way. And so, those are the words that I think have to be built here.
I like what you're saying about moral compass. It's our character of our work, right?
Mm-hmm. Are there other push a little bit more, any other values, principles, use that term, the how piece that this group will conduct themselves that you want to list?
Have we said transparency?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
honestly, like to me, at least in that first paragraph, there is some good stuff there. Robust participation, community involvement, positive, collaborative, solutions oriented.
they're good ones. Sarah, I wonder if we could just quickly write or post the list that we've begun to compile, just to let people see them. And before we sort of leave it and let this sort of resonate, are there some that need to stay on, some that need to come off, just to kind of one more look at it.
Yeah. David, would you mind just putting up a Word doc, just a blank one? Thank you so much.
And I can read off the ones I have, and maybe some others have kept notes, or Sarah, others can read off
Yep.
the ones I've missed.
Sounds
I had open,
Okay.
transparent, inclusive,
Sorry about my handwriting or my spelling. Okay.
urgency,
Okay.
data-driven,
Okay.
I had bias toward action or actionable,
All right.
and then I had the last couple participative and collaborative. What others were mentioned that I didn't get down?
I think we just need something around, like, as part of inclusivity, having equitable outcomes.
Okay.
You can still be inclusive and not have the outcomes reflect that.
Okay.
Good point.
What else?
Do we want to have something around shared power here, or is that only going to be in the mission statement? Or is shared power part of participative?
Yeah. Let's list it. We'll figure out maybe where it goes. We need to make. I get the point. It is part of participative. I'm sorry, Tamara, let me go back. What do you mean when you say shared power? What does that mean to you? Just
Sorry. It does need to be specific. Shared power is specifically referring to people with lived experience having decision-making power in our system. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other how words, values, principles, not operational, but any others that you would want that this group list, that you want to list?
This is Joan. I don't know if it was discussed earlier, and I think Samantha called this out, but solutions focused.
Good one. Yeah.
That's good.
So I'll just throw some out, words that I know or values that you find in a lot of organizations or board statements. Or does the word accountability need to be in there? Is that important to this group?
It's important to me.
Well, I think Amy brought up on when we were doing our ad hoc call, she brought that term up, that she hears it from the regional committee, accountability, progress and accountability.
Mm-hmm.
I like that one also. It's strong.
I think remind me when we commented on progress, help me remember that one. Was that when we discussed measurable?
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, Sarah, I didn't want to cut you off.
Oh, no, you go for it, please.
No, when I'm looking at my notes, and that was right around the time that we had talked about Pioneer and new standards of excellence. We talked about progress, accountability, defining success, identifying ways to measure how close we are to hitting the mark. We used measurable, co-create. alignment, shared, listening, you know, it was kind of all of those words sort of happened all at the same time.
Mm.
The word excellence, when you were talking, really stood out for me. If we're talking about our guiding principles, that we strive for excellence.
Jackie, what does that mean when it stands out? Why excellence is a good word for you?
Just the very best of practices, always holding up that gold standard
Yeah.
for all of us to strive for
Mm-hmm.
in every aspect.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, are there others? If some of you are writing anything in chat, would you I'm not watching chat, so if there's something really, really good.
I like
please-
Bruce put adaptive. I like that.
Okay.
Yeah. This work really is.
I'm going to say
constantly
quickly, it lacks a little urgency, but you know,
Yeah.
Tam was saying nimble or flexible, and I was thinking, yeah,
You could even say like ability to adapt quickly.
Well, I mean, COVID is an excellent example of that, right?
It's almost not even about ability. It's about willingness to adapt quickly.
Nimble.
Yeah.
Yeah, nimble came to
That's a
my
good
mind too. Was that you, Tamara?
Yep.
Yes.
Good. Okay. How's our brains?
Very mushy Friday like.
All right. So before we finish, anybody have anything else that you want to get on this list? It's a good list. Okay. What I might suggest is this also be a group, and maybe the mission group can take a crack at this if you want to empower them to do that, to sort of work on these a little bit. You know, one of the things I think is helpful sometimes if you start working on values or the how piece, you sort of create words, but you got to put some color around what that word sort of represents so that we have some alignment, because sometimes words mean different things. But that maybe the group could work with this list to sort of maybe prioritize some of these words, some of these values for the board, and then to come back, work on a little bit. I think a subgroup might make a little more progress. So give something more to react to. I might suggest that as a next step. I don't know what people think. I don't know if the mission group really wants to take this on as well, if that's too much. Have a thought?
I can't speak for the mission group, but one style I like in terms of getting things done is, I mean, what we just did with this, all the words that we circled, we liked and what we didn't. Why don't we send this out to the entire board and say, here's some words we're using, and either staff or the mission group could work on, but let's, you know, you could tell me, you got 3 days, Bruce, you want to add some words or say which ones you like and don't like? Go ahead. Otherwise, we're moving on. But give everybody a chance, and then somebody can compile it, and it'll be a lot easier, and everybody feels included then.
Yeah, it's a great suggestion, Bruce. So if I could add to that, we could send this out and ask you almost to multi-vote on the list. So ask everybody to give their top 5, top 10, whatever, add to it, but give us some feedback. We can do that easily administratively. Then we'll come back and have probably some of the top ones and the ones that had the most votes and the ones that had the lower votes. How's that? Is that okay to adaptation to what you're suggesting?
Love it. Love it.
Okay.
I love it too, but I think 10's too many. I had to go with 5. And I think then you really have to think about you're more discerning in what you choose as your top priorities. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because if you do 5, you'll end up probably having a few more than that with breaks. So you'll still have some conversation that we need to go on. But I agree with you, Jackie. Okay, so we'll do that with the values then. Between this and the next meeting, we'll send this out, and we'll give you some instructions on voting and we'll compile that. Good suggestion. Okay, so I'm going to suggest that maybe we take 5 minutes. We've been sitting for a while. Our brains are mushy. If it's okay, we'll kind of go offline for 5 minutes, take a stretch break and come back, and we'll talk about the charter, really what the board would like to do with this big document, the charter, and then we'll talk about new member recruitment. And then we'll call it quits after that for the day. Talk about next steps, et cetera, next meetings, and we'll call it quits. All right. So I have, what do I have? I have 3:05. So at 3:10, we'll come back.
Sounds great.
When
Thanks,
this,
Jim.
when this screen is up, oh no, okay. I was thinking I lose some functionality because it covers everything up, but figuring it out. Sorry.
That's honey. I'll be back, okay?
Jim.
Hi.
Hi. How's it going?
Yeah, good.
Good.
How are you?
Just doing fine.
Good, good. Glad to hear that.
I can't complain, really.
All right. Hopefully people are back. Welcome back.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Time really flew.
When we're having fun, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So on our agenda there's this charter. And I think the question that the board probably wants to ask or is asking is related to, I think, a strategy session is what would you like to do with this charter? And options may be, assign it to a group to review, validate, update, that kind of action, or read it, come back and talk about it at another point. Divide it up into different sections because it is quite lengthy. I'll throw it to the board.
I'm sorry, Jim. Can you restate that?
No, we on the agenda, the board had mentioned about this charter that you have. It's an extensive document. I think the question the board was wanting to discuss, or at least to my understanding, is what do you want to do with it? Does it need to be reviewed? Does it need to be revised? Does it need to be thrown out? Is it relevant? It's been around for a number of years, similar to, I think, maybe how the board has, become maybe more operational focused in the last couple of years, or more little C, trying to get to more big C. Does this charter need to be something done with it? And these elements that we're building, typically like mission and your values or your principles, and ultimately these strategies that we'll probably be talking about, the specific, here's what we are doing to meet our mission. That's always usually a piece of charters, right? It's the kind of the beginning portions of it. But you obviously have this document here that has been built and was asking, I think the board wanted to discuss what to do with it.
Oh, you're on mute, Ryan.
I was just going to ask if someone could throw that up.
David, could you throw the charter back up, please? Thank you.
And maybe the charter, and you're throwing that up, David, maybe it ought to be the table of contents. Would that be the place to look at? Because it's, yeah.
Just going to throw this out there for discussion. But I would think that as we're developing the vision, mission, values for the board, and we're thinking that the way that this current charter is laid out would need to be adapted to that once we make those changes. So I would think that there would need to be changes to the charter as we move forward with developing around the board's priorities.
I agree with that, Brandy. One of the things that, at least in here, is knowing that we wanted to take a look at the committees. And so even just some of this basic stuff, I think will probably need revision.
Okay. So is the suggestion potentially to maybe table this until we finish or get further down the road with mission and principles and strategies, and then come back to the charter? I mean, the charter to me seems, I'm not going to use the right words, almost like your operational manual, and maybe that needs to be looked at afterwards. Is that what you all are suggesting?
That makes sense from a process perspective.
Okay. Okay. And maybe some of the MAG folks know this. Is this charter, is this just copied from like a HUD manual or a HUD, or was this really written specifically for, the region here?
So I'll chime in on that, and then others feel free to add to what I have to say. So under the Hearth Act, we are required to have a governance charter. And some of the language that's included in this current charter includes some HUD language, but it certainly can be adapted to meet the needs and priorities of the board.
So Brandy, just so as we work through this, it will the MAG group ensure that if there are requirements that the Hearth Act needs, that we will ensure that those are maintained or included? And so as we get, a bigger, we make sure that that subset of that HUD work never gets lost in whatever we put together?
Yes, we can certainly do that to make sure that we aren't missing of those any of those requirements.
Okay, perfect. Okay, super. All right. So we'll set that aside. The structure of the committees and the charter, we'll table that until we get done or further along on our mission and values. And then, so then the next item on the agenda was the new member recruitment. And I will throw that out to say, I think you wanted to talk about do you, how do you, when do you, those kind of questions regarding this recruitment step. My understanding that it's been postponed, or you've put that on the back burner for some period of time. Is it time now? Is it not time now, I guess, to turn that on? So that's my understanding. Please correct me if I don't have that right.
Can I just add a little bit to that? I
Great.
think that we already have some of our committee structures. And so I was thinking maybe we should really be thinking about which committees are really working for us and which ones do we think maybe need to change a little bit, and maybe add some seats so we can have significantly more people that are Black or Indigenous or people of color, and also people with lived experience. And then additionally, how does that work for our board too? Do we want to add seats for those folks as well, instead of just having one seat of somebody with lived experience? I feel like we need more and probably more representative of the people that we're serving. And then lastly, just thinking about maybe having at least an interim co-chair. So just throwing those out there.
Is that the order you want to talk about those, Tamara, or you want to reverse that order?
Yeah, maybe we reverse it and just like maybe we could at least do an interim co-chair.
Yeah, that's what I was.
And then start thinking about how we want to format our committees.
That's what I was wondering.
So would we be calling it an interim simply because we're outside of the normal position filling cycle? I know we have a certain cycle defined for bringing on new board members. Is that why we would call it interim?
I think that's part of it. And also, like, if we wanted to have, an elected official have the co-chair spot and have that be reserved for an elected official, or do we want it to be something else? And so just giving us enough space and time to really figure out how we want to structure the board.
Yeah, we used to do that. And I don't know, we really got away from that. Gosh, help me remember, Brandy, was it when we restructured? But
yeah,
I thought it was
the last I remember being co-chair was Kevin Hartke.
Right.
Right. And I think that language still exists in the charter, so we could certainly do that again.
This is Joan. Do we need it? Do we need an elected official? Is there value? I'm not saying that there isn't. I'm just saying I think now is the time to question that assumption. Just
exactly.
That assumption.
I think there's only value if he or she participates. It doesn't do any good to have an official in that position if they're absent 50% of the time.
Agreed.
Not passing judgment on anyone specifically.
Even when they participate, their level of understanding, you know, given everything they have to do, can only be, you know, what it is. So I struggle with that one too. I'm not sure.
I mean, but on the flip side, it's great because then you have an invested champion on the issue. So it's, you know, we just have
We
to.
can carry our work with the regional council. I mean,
Right.
that would be the deal. I thought Kevin did a great job keeping up with the minutia on it. But I mean, it's hard to talk about what level till we kind of get the committees and ourselves leveled. You know what I mean? Right?
Right.
If on the CoC, we're going to spend half of our time talking about ranking and review and policies and all that, then they won't show and it's not appropriate. So what are we going to be kind of doing? I think we blur a lot about what we're interested in between the board and the committee. I think the committee's where a lot of the committee and committees is where a lot of the work gets done, right? So the board's kind of a policy, but the board should understands the issue. It's not like we just have a big name. They know they can speak homeless, they can speak HUD to some degree, they can, right, understand. They're in the middle of power, voting power, and running programs. That's the kind of level, I think, in the on the board.
I feel like that's sort of part of our issue right now, and might be why we're struggling to know the answer to this right now, is that I feel like sometimes out of absolutely no mal intent, of course, but I feel like sometimes staff is driving the board and committees are driving the board instead of the board leading and, you know, doing their job to lead and then saying to the committees, hey, what do you think of this? Could you give us, how would you operationalize this? Or, you know, what issues do you see with this? And same with staff. We're not saying, hey, this is what we could do. Let's look at what resources we have. What's our budget? What capacity does staff have, and say, hey, this is what we want to focus on right now. We're not doing that. We're actually being led. Things are coming to us and we're being asked to vote on it, but we're not necessarily driving anything or prioritizing anything necessarily. I feel like personally, which is our fault. I don't blame that on anybody except us. So if we're wanting to kind of flip that switch, then maybe it'll help us understand who we need, you know, leading. And I don't know what that looks like, who that would be, but.
Which we don't have to figure that out right now, which is why we wanted to say interim.
Yeah.
But I would just like some help with everything. So.
That's fair.
Yeah. Hi, it's Amy. Sorry, my camera's off. My internet connection's been a bit unstable. You know, but just to offer some food for thought, you know, it might be useful to think of this in terms of kind of three boards and with three kinds of leadership, and there's different skill sets, time commitment, levels of interaction at each of these stages. So the first board is and leadership is what we have right now. And then there's kind of a transition board. And I feel like as I listen to you, it seems like we're really moving into that. So it's that transition board, that transitional leadership, kind of the storming and forming, you know, so it's a different skill set. And then the ongoing board and leadership, whatever that looks like moving into the future, you know. And so there's different opportunities for some to come on, maybe some go off at different points. So I think the interim really speaks to that, you know, that you'd have an interim co-chair because we're not sure what the ongoing board will look like at this point. And then that gives you some space to kind of explore and dig into this and really kind of experiment. Well, is it this? Is it that? You know, and it gives you that space to really delve into those really critical issues that you're raising right now.
So you're talking in terms of the current kind of configuration with Tamara getting some help, being a transitional board.
Yes.
And I think that makes sense because now that everybody understands what's happening with the collaborative
Mhm.
and all the work that's being done, bringing somebody new now, I mean, maybe we should be targeting this for after or somewhere around August when we have the implementation plan. I mean, nobody's saying this, but if we had a whole new CoC board tomorrow, you'd be going, oh my God, we got to start all over with everybody, like, or anybody. So this is the group that's kind of weathered this and delivered. Maybe this is the transitional board now.
Right. And then, and then as we hear about different ideas, so for example, to reflect back to the board, some of the groups that have been suggested through the outreach forums in terms of additional board seats that you might want to consider. So somebody from education, somebody from the domestic violence field, and then somebody from philanthropy. And so as we go further through this process, and we're working with you on understanding the data, conceptualizing and really fine-tuning those strategies, there might be other groups that you might want to consider for that ongoing board. But the current board, the transitional board, is the one that's really helping to ask those questions and then to develop those answers.
Yeah.
Amy, can you say that one again? Education, courts, legal, philanthropy. There was one more. I can't remember.
Right, so domestic violence.
Oh, domestic violence.
Right,
Okay.
education and philanthropy.
I think I added courts and legal because that also came up during the racial equity stuff, is
yes.
Kind of these feeder systems and doing some cross-sector work.
Makes a lot of sense.
Have we mentioned business? I really feel like we need the private sector.
Yes. Thank you, Ryan. Yes, business was brought up at regional council as well.
Okay.
So yes, definitely business.
And maybe even more specifically on the racial equity front. And, I'm not an expert, or I really know very little about that field, so please correct me. But would it be wise to even have someone that works in that area of increasing racial equity stuff and diversity? Or is it just more right to just be a more diverse, inclusive group? I don't know the answer, but I feel like since we're such a baby fledgling in this area, would it be, everybody is. I mean, I listened to the presentation that you gave the other day, Sam, at subcommittee, and I was thrilled. I loved it. It was so good. And I know you guys had some assistance from a firm or a consultant, from these folks that are really like in the weeds at the national level doing this work. Would it be even smart of us to get someone that can help, bring us up to speed?
Yeah, I think that Jeff Olivet and Donald, they're amazing. I'm going to miss them so much. I'm like, can we just ship them here and just keep them permanently? So yeah, I think there is some value in doing that, or at least making sure that we're doing our part to stay connected to organizations who already have this sort of built in to it in some sort of way, and really making sure that we're kind of maintaining almost like a pipeline. Because one of the things that came out during the racial equity talk was being authentic in our choices, and not just having kind of like a token person there that wasn't really serving a purpose, and so it may just be that we need to connect with an organization who pays attention to this, or connect with organizations who are I don't know,
Almost like
it's
coaching
built
in this area,
Yeah.
And maybe that's goes to the notion that we mentioned a couple meetings ago about the potential of having some kind of advisory piece to our board, where there are real experts in deep fields that we are not, but we can't be everything to everyone, but we could have an advisory group of people who are experts in the things that we are not, and can always be there to help us and guide us. Maybe that's where that lives.
Sorry, go ahead, Jackie. No, Jackie, go ahead.
I was going to say, relative to business is so broad. I would think if we can target like a chamber representative or somebody that has access to multiple businesses would be a much more effective approach than singly focusing on any one business. Just a thought to think about.
No, Jackie, and to touch base on that too, with all the forums that are underway right now, there's some really good outreach, and particularly with the business forum coming up on March 11th, we have some good partners who are really investing a lot of time and effort into that, and so that might help to increase kind of the portfolio of people that might be considered to serve in that role.
Great.
But does this get us to where we need to be with the interim conversation?
Yeah, so I kind of want to go back to that. I've heard Tamara talk about this a couple times, maybe 2, 3, 4. I've been around a long time, but I think this is really important to her.
Yes.
And I want to sort of not leave it until I like the idea that we're looking for an interim, and so that it allows us to kind of bridge from the old to the new. But I guess out of respect, I would like the board maybe to talk about how we get that done.
Sometimes we need to be bold in our actions. So let's be bold in our actions. I nominate Ryan Balch to be our interim co-chair.
Nice. I nominated Ryan on Tuesday or whenever we did our meeting. It keeps getting really.
So that's a second.
All in favor?
Aye. This feels a lot like my life lately. It's right in.
And just to clarify, we're not taking official action.
I'm certainly willing to help Tamara out in whatever way I can.
But we would happy to set the board agenda to include that action for February 22nd.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Ryan, it is really a testimony to like your leadership and how you represent things.
Exactly. I'm
For
forever trying to fit in your big shoes that you left with the coalition. You and
Oh,
Jackie.
please. You've so far exceeded that. That's ridiculous.
Oh, no, I've got Jackie and Ryan. It's like forever. I can't wear your shoes, but I'm trying.
You're wearing them just perfectly
Yeah,
on
agreed.
steroids.
All right, this isn't about me. This is about Ryan. So yay, Ryan. Thank you.
So is that sort of how this group works? Is if you do a great job, then you get asked to do things? Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah.
What we do to caseworkers.
Right.
That's right.
You handled those 20 so well.
Here you go. Have some more.
So can I ask, is there any governance structure or governance that mandates or that dictates how a co-chair or an interim co-chair would be brought on in this group? Or is this as informal as you guys are doing it today, is that you can ask if there's somebody who wants to do that and becomes it and you vote on it? Help me out with that. Maybe Amy knows.
Right, just as a process of order, we would be happy to put this on the February 22nd board agenda for action. And the decision is solely up to the board. So that would be the place to take the action and then to be able to move forward on that.
So
I will be happy to step down, really actually be interim and just step down when we decide what the real leadership should look like. Because I do think we're at a precipice where we really need to figure out how do we pick the right people to be our champions and move us forward. Mm-hmm. And that's me, but I'm willing to just help in the interim, and then let's pick that person. Let's get that right person there.
Well,
if
Ryan agrees to respond positively, it probably would be fair to ask all the other board members, is anybody interested? Right? And Ryan will say yes. And then, you know what I mean? Because somebody might, I don't think so, but right? I think it's just fair to ask everybody who wasn't here today.
Oh, I totally agree with that. And historically, I guess I can't I thought I was remembering that if people were interested, they would submit like a letter of interest or something like that.
Right, Jackie, I was just thinking about that. If we want to just open this up, if the board wants us to send out an announcement letting everyone know, including people who are not currently serving on the board, that the board is looking for an interim co-chair to serve with Tamara. And if so, please submit letters of interest, and then those would be received before the board meeting. So we could send those out to you, and then we could put it on the agenda for the board to take action at that time.
Great.
Let's not open it up, though. We just have declared we're morphing towards being a transitional board. So let's not have anybody new come on who may not meet a new criteria down the road in 5 months or something.
I agree with that, Bruce, but I was just saying at least putting it out to the whole board that if
The
anyone's
current board.
interested.
Yeah.
And then Amy, remind me, like, what is, there's a cycle for bringing on new board members, and was it at the last time when we canned the whole notion of, we had a handful of really good potential applicants and that got scrapped. Was that our regular cycle?
Sarah and Brandy, do you want to jump in on that point, please?
Yes, I'll chime in on that, Jackie. Yes, so that was, I believe, in October, and that was part of the annual board membership cycle. And so then there was a decision made to put that on hold while we go through the strategic planning process that we're going through now, and then to begin that again.
So next October, we would be looking to either to reaffirm current officers or?
Well, I don't think we would have to wait until October. I think the board could decide to begin that membership process when you're ready to do that. Once you've completed or you're in a place where you feel like, you're ready to do that, you've completed the strategic planning discussions, and you're ready to move on to opening up the membership. And the transitional interim board co-chair is not anywhere in the governance charter. So I think the board could be nimble to make that decision at the next meeting to move forward as you've been discussing today.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I mean, I love Ryan and she could stay there forever as far as I'm concerned, but I just am trying to understand process
And it is the board's decision to change the process that's in the current charter as well. So if you're wanting to move forward in a different way, then the board has that prerogative to make that decision.
Thank you.
Speaking of process, though, something else I wanted to bring up, maybe this needs to be reserved for the board meeting as well, but it's in our charter that the leader of the coordinated entry subcommittee has to be a board member. And I'm wondering, now that the committee is running pretty well, and we do have somebody that has volunteered to facilitate and be a leader, Matthew Kelly from Mercy Care, do we want to review that again, where a board member isn't the one that's required to be the leader? So just something to think about also.
Is that a change to the charter that would have to be voted on in the board meeting?
Yes. I'm just looking at Brandy nod.
Okay, sorry,
so
yes.
Brandy, is
I'm
that
nodding,
something?
but I need to vocalize that.
Brandy, is that something we put on the agenda then?
Yes, that could be a change that we make as we meet next month, or if the board wants to handle that with the overarching governance charter changes that they're making in the future. But there would be action. I
don't mind us waiting until till we start talking about committee structure.
I think that makes sense, Tamara.
Yeah, until we talk about committee structure, for sure.
Okay, let me summarize kind of where we're at, what I heard, and we talked about the co-chair. We have an interim co-chair that we want to pursue. Ryan has graciously indicated her interest in doing that. She did say she would do that for the next 5 years. I did hear that. Did you guys hear that too?
Right.
Okay. I don't know by the way, I don't know how long interim you think is interim, if there's a time frame on that. maybe we don't need to talk about that, but
I guess I was thinking until we make, well, I guess there could be a max term, but I feel like we're going to be making, as we shift who we are, we're going to make a decision about the type of leadership we want. And at that point, I think that would be a good time to off the interimness and vote for the right people.
yeah.
Person.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, just to play this out, a nice process would be you finish with mission, you talk about your values, you talk about here are our strategies, and then you go back and look at yourselves and say, do we have the right people? Are we the people that can deliver this mission?
Right.
You know, and if not, then that obviously gives you sort of the ticket of where to go to get people, to get the right people. But it also may help you clarify or define what it is we want a board person to do or be a part of. It may really, and we could talk about this, you almost write a job description. If you're going to be on this board, this is what you'll be responsible and accountable to do. So it might have some nice flow, and then that might be the same time frame. I think, Ryan, to your point, the leadership maybe be looked at as well.
Do we already have job descriptions, Brandy? I feel like we might.
For the board members?
Yeah.
I don't know that we do.
Okay. Thought we might.
I don't know. Sarah, are you aware of anything? Nothing's coming to mind, but we can look into that, Ryan.
Yeah, not to my knowledge.
I was just curious. Somewhere along the line, I've worked on that, but maybe not here.
Okay, so Ryan, we will bring that up at the next board to make that a voting matter for interim co-chair. Thank you for that. The other two pieces of business, I think you wanted to table and hold off committee structure and board seats. I think we're going to set that aside. So does that also mean we're going to continue to set aside any sort of recruitment, just so we got that clarity on there? We're not going to be doing any recruitment. We won't be talking about that for a period of time, even, next month or two. Is that right?
I'd say yes.
Okay. Anything else on that whole idea of new member recruitment? Okay. All right. Next steps. Any other, I guess we had some feedback again, we've asked for feedback on this planning process. Anybody want to comment on today or kind of where we're at? Any feedback?
I'm kind of thinking through the next steps on this. Of course, it's like, which do we do first? I think, in the governance charter, the big portion to it that's next is the continuum of care board, where we describe the types of seats and all of that. So, and then I'm like, well, what do we do first, right? Would it be more helpful for us to look at the committees first and their structure? Would that help inform who should be on the board if we look at it at that level first? Or, do we, and I'm just throwing thoughts out right now. So, or do we start at like the evidence-based practices from the services that we want to see provided in our continuum, right? Like the emergency shelters and all of those things. And then does that inform who and how we want to structure the subcommittees, which then informs the board? But yeah. I think that diving into the governance charter is a really good next step for us, and kind of breaking it into segments and trying to look at it from a very detailed lens for each subpart.
Okay. There's
Yeah, I think
a
that's
little
where
bit
I'm
of chicken or
struggling.
egg kind of a thing going on, in some of this. I'm sorry, go ahead. I think Samantha, you were going to speak.
No, I was just saying that I think that's where I'm struggling. It feels like we've got an action plan in place for race equity, and that's just one piece of the work that needs to be done. I don't know, for all of the things that we've sort of been talking about, especially from the innovative side of things, it doesn't feel like we've really defined what we're going for. I don't know if that's still like built for zero. I don't know, but it feels like we still need to define almost like what work we want to do, because it almost feels like that drives everything. And I don't know if we're waiting to get input from the regional, collaborative work. I don't know if we're waiting to hear what, you know, what comes from those discussions. So I don't know, but it feels like this is the part that we're missing is what are we doing?
Yeah. Okay, that's great feedback. My thinking is that's really coming quickly. Once we know who we are, our purpose, then we got to figure out what are we going to do to get to that purpose, right? What actions? I think that's what you're talking about. Those many people define those are strategies, they're objectives. Those are those important maps. And I think you're right. I don't think we've really talked about that at this point. I think that will then make the color of the committee structure come really out, whether the committee structure is really situated to accomplish what we've now said we want to do. That will be probably that will be hopefully on the agenda the next time we get together.
Jim, I just want to say something. It's frustrating to me that although I thought we were pretty productive today being a smaller group, it's frustrating that about half of us are missing. And I just think that's when we're really looking at charting something that's hopefully going to be innovative and different. The fact that half of us aren't here is problematic. And I don't know if there's a way to send that out to the rest. I'm not into scolding, but it's like, come on, people, this needs to be a priority. Just expressing my own frustration.
And this is live and on YouTube. So if they're listening at some point, they heard you.
No, I
Consider yourself officially scolded.
Whoa.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I mean, obviously when, this is a little bit of sausage making, but when you get through it, you sort of buy off on it. You sort of have, you're a piece of this. That's an important part of, the product. So if you didn't participate, I think then you gotta work a little harder to make sure that all the board members aligns to all the work that you've done and the thinking behind it. But yeah, I mean, maybe we want to just ask the question, is Friday afternoon still the best time, to ensure that we maximize the availability of the board? It also could be, it's a 3-day weekend. Does this kind of get wrapped into a 4-day weekend for some people? I don't know. I don't want to justify people not being here.
I can tell you, I have a large number of staff off today, and I'm positive it's because it's a long weekend.
Yeah.
So, maybe that's something we want to think about in our planning for future.
Okay. Okay.
I'd almost rather start early someday than late on a Friday, because by now this is my 30th Zoom meeting this week. And so I'm a little bit fried of the Zoom thing.
I agree, Bruce.
If we were in person Friday afternoon, we could go somewhere and, have something to eat and all that. But so maybe there's a better time.
We need to get you when you're fresh, like Monday morning.
Yes, probably not Monday morning, but concept. Okay,
so Sarah, just on that piece, we have our next board meetings on the February 22nd, right?
Yep. Yes.
And then we have planning sessions for the 12th and the 19th. Are those are both Fridays, right?
They are, yes. I am happy though to send out a new set of doodle options if Friday isn't going to work for folks, because Bruce, you're not the first person that I've heard that from.
So maybe we should do that since we've got some time before that March meeting, to see if there's a better slot other than Friday afternoon for everyone. And maybe we can even say we're doing this because we want to we knew we didn't reach everybody the last meeting. We really are trying to find a better time that we can reach more board members.
And is 2 hours good for everyone, or should I extend it to 3? I feel like we start getting into some good stuff and then the meeting's almost over. So do you want?
I don't know, 3 hours that's way too much for me personally. I would rather have us try to be more efficient in the 2 hour time frame. That's just me.
Okay.
But I'd love to hear from the rest of you. It could just be that it's my 30th Zoom of the week too, so I
probably not.
zoomed out.
I think we'll make a little more progress too once some of the ad hoc stuff is done. We have something a little bit more solid to react to. And then I think we'll move a little quicker. But since I have seen most of you like every day this week in multiple meetings, I think it's been a very heavy Zoom week. And I think our energy is just a little bit low. At least that's how I feel. It's been a heavy meeting week. So.
I think, Sarah, to your point, I think we got to work on making the 2 hours efficient as possible. I think doing it longer than that is hard. I mean, I feel like 2 hours on Zoom is like a 4-hour in-person meeting. It sort of doubles the feel for it. So we'll work really hard to make it efficient and make the 2 hours valuable and keep moving forward. Okay, so the mission group will meet between now and then. We'll continue to work and hopefully have something that's really close to come back to this group. We'll do the values. We'll send that out to you. You'll be voting on those. We'll have that to look back on and see where that work. And then we'll come back when we get together in March and we'll really start digging in on strategies for the board to meet that new mission. Any comments before we close? Tamara or Sarah, the MAG people, Brandy, Amy?
I was just going to say excellent meeting and that I'm so grateful for y'all. Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say happy Valentine's Day to you. Are among my favorite people. So hope you have a good weekend.
Yes, a long weekend.
Valentine's Day.
Thank you for your time, everybody. We know it's valuable and it's very important.
Yes, thank you so much. And
Everyone.
Eighthood Day.
let us know if you need anything in the meantime. We'll see you all soon.
Thanks,
Thank you. Have a
Sarah.
good weekend.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye.